Evolution of the industry has changed to where record keeping is tremendously more important.
Made a new rule and everybody had to start keeping records.
Everything's documented.
Well, I'm Joe Dager, and I'm part of the biz development team at ApRecs. And with me is Drew Zabrocki, and Drew is the managing director and product manager of ApRecs. And we wanted to touch base and talk about the interaction today between food safety and the sales desk. Drew, could you start out that conversation and then just kind of put that in perspective for us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Joe. Right now we have, the sales desks are gearing up, and they're looking at specific requirements from their customers as to what active ingredients or products are applied in certain horticultural practices being applied to the fruit. And they need to make sure that the fruit that's destined to those customers are going to be compliant. And so they're oftentimes interacting with food safety departments, finding out what's been applied to the fruit. Is it going to meet our MRL requirements? So that's the minimum residue level testing, making sure that if a product, specifically a set of active ingredients, were applied to the fruit, that by the time it reaches the customer, it's going to be below that threshold and a compliant product. And so they're working with food safety to determine what was applied to that fruit and whether or not that fruit can reach those markets or maybe needs to be redirected.
Well, I thought the sales desk just negotiated price and, got a good price for the grower and went ahead. You mean they do more than that?
They really do a lot more than that. It's a concerted effort between sales and food safety to make sure that that information is flowing really from the field right to that customer loading dock. And it's complicated, Joe, because the MRL list contain active ingredients that could relate to multiple different products, and depending on when those products were applied and at what rates is going to determine the destiny of that fruit. And that's precisely why we developed the watch component as an awareness, part of the awareness module of ApRecs.
The sales guy, things are moving pretty fast at his desk, even though it seems that a boat to China may be moving pretty slow. It's actually, he's compiling a lot of different records, from even different packers, to fill this shipment, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And you have to also remember that for perishable crops such as cherries, they're sometimes going on a plane, and so they're moving quickly. But you're absolutely correct. The information is being pulled together from multiple growers, multiple packing facilities or processing facilities, and combining to create orders that have to all be compliant when they arrive at the dock, because who knows which fruit is going to be sampled and tested there, which could determine the fate of that entire shipment.
When they're going to food safety, they're getting this label in the box, so they're pretty secure what is in there as far as the variety, the grade, and probably the date of when it was picked. Maybe is that what's all on the label there?
Essentially, they're going to know the grade of the fruit that they're purchasing, and that's one element, a very important element that the sales desk is coordinating, is making sure that the right fruit is the right market. But once they determine that they have the availability of a particular grade or quality of fruit, and that it's ready to go to that customer who's requesting that, now it needs to meet the compliance requirements. And so now we need to make sure that food safety standards and MRL standards set forth by that market or by that customer. And that's not on the label.
And so someone has to be assured of that before they run that line for that particular country. How do they separate out, this fruit's going to China or this fruit's going?
It's tough. It's a very complicated process, compounded by the disparity of records across all of the stakeholders. You have to think that even at a processor level, you're dealing with dozens, if not hundreds of growers, each with various systems and forms of record keeping, with a variety of trade names and common names, active ingredients that create a very complex matrix of information. Add to that, dealing with perishable crops, the time sensitivity of pulling it off the tree, getting it packed and shipped out within a 24 to 48 hour period. There's not enough time to process and analyze that information, even if you have it on hand. Unfortunately, trends in the industry are that the information is coming right before or just in time with the fruit. And again, because it's not in a consistent set, the information isn't, as we call it in the geek world, normalized. It's difficult to analyze. it's a very complicated matter that takes a lot of people and a lot of effort to try to maintain compliance. And without the right tools, it's difficult, if not impossible.
You just created the watch list, or this, you had the information there, but you're using more of it in ApRecs to provide packers with more information to give to the sales desk?
Well, that's precisely why Watch was developed. We had Product Watch last year, and this year it's evolved to a module in and of itself simply called Watch. And it allows our pack, ship, or process customers to develop a set of lists or parameters that they wish to comply with. So perhaps they're in alignment with the EU standards or codec or the US MRLs or various markets. Maybe it's a large retailer that has specific requirements. Those requirements are put into a list or a template that the packer can easily create from a list of known active ingredients. And what we do is every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and 3 p.m. in the afternoon, ApRecs reviews all of the recommendations as well as the application records within that PSP's account, within that processor's account, and we look for any violations of those watch lists. And if there's an item of concern, we then tabulate those alerts with the detailed records and all of the information surrounding what is of concern, and we send it out in an immediate email notification, as well as present that in a list that they can filter and slice and dice and sort and analyze right there in their ApRecs portal. So they never have to leave ApRecs to be able to analyze that. We enable our packers to take that information and to categorize it based on their degree or their assessment, whether they acknowledge, ignore, or they wish to redirect a certain set of fruit based on the information that they're able to determine from those reports.
From a sales desk standpoint, then, I can actually sit there and go back to my packer or my processor and say, I'm going to be needing this variety to meet these requirements within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And before it's even delivered to the packer, they can determine whether they can fill the order?
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly what it's designed for. I mean, you remember that ApRecs is not about reporting. The basis of ApRecs operation is all on awareness. It's about creating interconnected awareness between all of the stakeholders, the growers, the packers, the shippers, the processors, the sales desk, so that rather than reporting on what has happened or what's on that fruit as it's left the packing facility, what's on its way here and what opportunities do we have, what market opportunities do we have. And so what you described is Snapshot. So Snapshot is also a part of Watch, and essentially it just distills that information to a very clean table that says, here's your list of growers and here's your list of markets. This is where you're compliant. This is where you're not. And so you can scan through that list and look out for any warnings and immediately determine whether a particular grower number, or variety, whatever level of detail you want to keep, is or is not compliant with your top markets, and you can move that fruit quickly. Then when it comes time to supplying the backup information to substantiate that compliance, you can quickly just go to that grower's account, zip up all of their records into one file and email or securely send those to your client or stakeholder.
Are people requiring these records to be sent as part of sending the fruit?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Clients are, not only looking for pictures and for additional information about the product, but they want the records to back it up as well.
And so from a sales desk, again, his perspective is he's taking some of this last minute information that he's trying to acquire to fill an order and really giving him a little bit more time to organize the information.
We can literally turn this information out while you're on the phone. It's not a, hey, I need this, can you look into it and get back to me tomorrow or the next day, and someone's fumbling through papers for 72 hours to try to figure out and then push it out the door, best effort. This is an example where sales desk can get on the phone with food safety, say, here's my market requirements, who's compliant, how much can you send me? And by the time they push a few buttons and process the watch list right there in real time, you have an answer. The other flip side of that is that you have to realize, Joe, that sometimes these lists change. The MRL requirements may change in the middle of the season, so you may have prepared your growers and have your food safety records drilled down, and you're sending your fruit a certain direction. All of a sudden, sales desk pops up and says, well, the MRL tolerance just dropped on these active ingredients for this market. Does your fruit still comply? Uh-oh. Well, if you did this the old-fashioned way of compiling the information by hand, guess what you're doing tonight is going back and starting over again. Whereas with Watch, you log into your ApRecs portal, you just simply add those active ingredients to your watch list or change the parameters as necessary and hit process watch list. While sales desk is still on the phone, you can give the thumbs up or thumbs down right then.
We have an abundance of fruit now, an abundance of things. Do I really need this? I mean, I'm sitting there and I can just call them up and get whatever I want, can I?
Yeah, it doesn't always work that way, and you know we've been blessed in certain markets. Other markets and areas are not as abundant of supply, and things change. You know, we're still very early in on the cherries in the Pacific Northwest. We have more to see from the East Coast. The markets are ever shifting and changing. Not only are there requirements, but the opportunities, the customers, as well as the supply. So having information at your fingertips when and where you need it allows you to capitalize on those opportunities. It's a market. The sales desk is all about leveraging those opportunities and meeting the best needs of their customers. ApRecs Watch allows them to do this.
With Watch, when I drill this down, it's great, but someone's got to be putting this information in there. How does that work? From a sales desk perspective, I'm looking down at my Packer. I get this box with a label on it. I feel pretty secure.
Right.
But tell me what's in the box, what's behind it, and is there really recordation behind that stuff?
You said we just had a few minutes today, Joe, and so I'm afraid that conversation is going to take a little while longer. Let me just, I guess, break it down in simple terms, is that not only are the markets and the market requirements complex, but anytime you involve multiple stakeholders, each with their own way of doing things, there's complexities that have to be managed. And entering information in is one of those complexities that's very, very difficult to manage because you have many different growers of different size, shapes, organizations using various platforms and systems, each with their own rules and methodologies and sometimes terminology. And so that information has to be pulled together and aggregated. And it's maybe a discussion for another day, but I think it's salient here because the watch list is all about distilling down the information that the sales desk and what food safety needs today. But you're not going to have that information if the information wasn't entered in the first place, which is to your point exactly. And so the ApRecs PSP solution, Pack Ship Process solution, includes other modules besides Watch, which is what we're talking about today. Modules such as Align, which allows a packer to align records from various different systems into one, here's my word again, normalized format that can now be read by ApRecs. In addition, we have a very streamlined tool for growers to be able to keep all of their recommendations and their application records in one spot and complete their records in a very timely and consistent fashion. So those records just already exist. A packer doesn't need to import them or ask for them. It goes back to our philosophy of awareness. As the growers are completing the records, those records are securely and instantly available to a packer based on their permissions. So the records get to ApRecs a number of ways. We support a variety of channels because we're all about interoperability and being easy to work with, understanding that people have different systems, so we work with those various systems so that the net effect is that the watch list is timely, accurate, complete, and empowers not only food safety but the sales desk and their ultimate customer.
So as a salesperson, should I be concerned that there's records back there? I mean,
I would be. Yeah, I mean, are they back there? Are they really there? Are our records truly representative of the shipment? You know, are you sending me a sample of just the records that you have? Are you able to produce a comprehensive list based on all of your growers? And I know that this fruit's going to be compliant when it gets there. So yeah, I think there needs to be something other than, you know, confidence in a thumbs up, thumbs down, but more so a discussion between sales and food safety about show me how you've been successful with food safety recordation. Show me how I can have confidence in these reports so that when the rubber hits the road and I pick up the phone and call you, I know that you're pulling this from an information system that is designed to be flexible for our industry, that's designed to meet our needs, that has the information behind the answers that it gives. Because not every system does. If you're not able to bring in information from a variety of sources and formats and collect that information into a normalized format that can turn about the answers quickly and consistently, then you're only getting half the answer, and that's not a good position to be in.
Well, can one bad apple spoil everything?
That's exactly what happens, Joe, and we have several of our customers come to us because their growers are concerned, especially with co-ops that they're pulling fruit from a variety of growers, and maybe they're part of a sales organization across multiple packers, and so fruit can come from a variety of processors and packers and from a variety of growers, producers to fill one order. If upon arrival at that customer location, the sampling is retrieved from that entire order, who knows whose fruit it is when it gets pulled, and they're going to sample it. If it's out of compliance, the whole shipment's in jeopardy.
And so that shipment could be just not through one packer down to one grower. It could be multiple packers and processors across the whole spectrum. It's whoever's in that container.
It depends on the situation, but you're right. Yeah, it's whoever's in that container. Sometimes it's fewer than others, and sometimes it's more. It all depends on the order and the situation. But one producer or one processor involved in that order can ruin it for everybody else. And sometimes the fruit doesn't have legs to pick up and walk somewhere else, and so it ends up being destroyed, and that's just yet another cost.
Well, I always heard a story that some of these things are just created as part of a supply and demand thing.
Sure.
Too much fruit in, so let's have a new regulation to stop this for the next 2 or 3 months because we already have enough.
Sometimes they're using MRL specifically and certain food safety requirements, quote unquote, as a throttle. Yeah. And so if we empower our processors and our sales desk with information to navigate around those roadblocks, then they can be the ones to capitalize on market opportunities and leave those others who are waiting for 2 or 3 days to process information to fall behind.
So what we're saying is the sales desk needs to have this information at their fingertips and practically immediately to make the best decision.
Yeah, time is money. I mean, that's true in any industry.
Is there something about Watch that I didn't ask that really would affect the sales desk more that you could elaborate on?
We're excited for some of the next generation of Watch and really looking at empowering the sales desk with their own dashboard. Of course, still within the spirit of our security and privacy environment, but at this point, the key takeaways there is the ability to quickly be able to determine product availability and compliance with a particular market in real time, be able to process that as the market shifts and as new requirements are stated, and to be able to rely on the completeness and the accuracy of that information because it's coming from a system that includes all grower data.
So from a packer standpoint, can I deliver a PDF today from Watch to a sales desk to give him the information he wants out of ApRecs?
Yeah, you can drop that in an email or fire it out any way you like, whether you want to print, fax, email, scan, give them the thumbs up over the phone and follow back up with the documentation to support it. And some of our processors have done some very cool things based on their own knowledge and laboratory examinations to be able to add things such as applied after or before dates or above, below rate qualifiers. So what that means is they can take a list and they can watch for active ingredients, but they can put a lens to filter those results based on their knowledge of when that was applied and whether or not that fruit will still comply because it's had time for the residue to degrade. So they've been able to do some very cool things to really push the limits of compliance, of course within the spirit of food safety, and are doing some exciting things with it. We'll talk more about that, I think, coming up in an upcoming webinar. Okay, Drew, I'd like to thank you very much for this introduction to Watch. Hopefully a few sales desks will participate with us in some upcoming discussions to take it to another level. Well, there are several who have already asked and are very interested in this, designed with their input. They feel it's going to give them a strategic advantage, so I think we'll have great attendance. I'm looking forward to it, Joe, and thank you.